Random thoughts. In this video, I'm going to talk about who Syokimau was. Of course, today when you say Syokimau, everybody knows it's a residential area in Machakos County and is becoming very popular because it's close to Nairobi and it's not that expensive. People are moving there, buying land, building homes and things like that. There are now malls there and it's a place that is really growing very fast. And it's also, when we say Syokimau, most people, of course, know Syokimau railway station. And it is interesting, the person that is named, or Syokimau, the person I'm going to talk about, it is said that she predicted about the coming of the railway line. Now, Syokimau was a high priest of the Akamba Republic. And the many republics that existed in Kenya before the arrival of the British had high priests or high priestesses. And the high priest, just like many other societies around the world, historical societies that is, and even today, of course, we have societies that have high priests, and most people don't even realize that. Even Western societies, for example, the UK has a high priest. The bishop is called the Bishop of Canterbury or something like that. That's the high priest of the United Kingdom. And so many other societies, of course, when you read the Bible, the ancient kingdom of Israel did have a high priest. The Republic or the ancient Roman Republic did have high priests. And so it is also the case that many republics and kingdoms in Africa did have, or monarchies in Africa, because Africa had monarchies, and those are talked a lot about than the republics. But when you look carefully at history, then you find out that Africa had more republics than monarchies. So when you come to Kenya, Kenya had a lot more, or the region we know today as Kenya, because Kenya was not there. Maybe if we talk more than 100 years, there was no Kenya. Kenya is a very recent creation. But the land, of course, has always been there, and there have been people on this land. And those people have had governance structures, and the most popular governance structure that has existed on the land we know today as Kenya is republics. There were a few monarchies, and maybe one that is very well known, the Mumia monarchy in Western Kenya, but the rest were republics. Now, the Akamba people lived in a republic. And this republic, like many other republics, of course, or many other republics during that time in Kenya, it was led by a council of elders, and then there was a high priest, or someone who basically provided the vision for the republic. Mostly it was taken that this person would communicate with God or the gods or the ancestors, and then, of course, provide the right vision that the republic had to follow. It was the same case for the Akamba Republic. The Akamba Republic had a high priest. Now, here is something unique about the Akamba Republic. When you look at most of the other republics that existed in what we know today as Kenya, most of them had mostly male high priests. When you look at the Nandi, for example, they had Orgoyots who were mostly male, or almost always a man. Kimnyole, Koitalel Arab Somoe, and such. You go to the Kipsigis, they had Koilegen and similar or such kind of people. The Kisis had Sakawa. And I think the Luos had their own high priests that were mostly male. And the Kikuyu had mostly male high priests. We can talk of Mugo Kabiru, which was a male, but there is a controversy around the gender of this individual. Some people have found out, or have seen some people say that there is a likelihood it was a woman. But anyways, but the general understanding is that it was a male. So the Akamba stand out when it comes to the high priest. Their high priest, at least at one point, Syokimau was a female. And even the high priestess that took over after Syokimau was also another female. So it seems like among the Kamba, or in the Akamba Republic, it was normal for female to have female high priests. Now, Syokimau is said that lived in the 1800s. We don't have the exact dates. It is generally understood that she lived in the 1800s. That means in the entire of the 19th century. We can't tell for sure when exactly, but most likely it was in the early 19th century. That's when she served as the high priest of the Akamba people. Now, She, of course, performed all the functions of a high priest, providing vision, um, telling the Republic what was supposed to be done at what time, and telling the Republic what dangers laid ahead and how to prepare for that. And it's specifically mentioned in many sources that Syokimau did, in particular, guide the soldiers of the Akamba Republic, tell them when to prepare for war and when there was imminent attack from their neighbors, especially the Kikuyu and the Maasai and other people to the north, maybe the Somalis and the Oromos. And she will tell them when there was likely going to be danger coming, and they will prepare for that. And also she will bless them, of course, before they go to the battlefield, like high priests in many other societies in Africa and outside Africa. And now here is something that is mostly talked about when the name Syokimau comes up, and is that she predicted the coming of the Europeans. She predicted the coming of the railway line, describing it as a huge snake that carried people, and she talked about birds that carried people and white people, things like that. And you know my stand on such predictions. I did explain in my previous video that I don't believe these people actually predicted that, at least not in a way that we can take it to be that they got vision from the spiritual world. I think most of these priests, we can call them, or prophets, got this information through their networks. There were people moving from the coast to Akamba land, to Kikuyu land, Arab traders and Swahili traders, and they could carry information, and these people could get that information. For example, the Europeans settled at the coast for a while, and they were talking to the Zanzibaris and the Arabs at Mombasa. Most likely, they did give them some of their plans about colonizing the land and maybe building a railway line and such. People, maybe stories like that, and they will share those information. They will share that information with the people in these republics, and more specifically the prophets. Now, as far as aeroplanes, in the 18th or in the 19th century, the aeroplanes were not yet here, and maybe it's just a revisionist tale, as I explained in my previous video. So Syokimau is very well known to have been a high priest of the Akamba Republic, or high priestess. And she also was a healer. Seems like she was a herbalist, and she would provide medicine to the people when they were sick. So that was also one of her roles. So her name has remained. Her name has been given to a huge part of, you can say, Machakos County, and a railway station is named after her. And there is even a statue of her standing outside the railway station. And so that is who Syokimau was. So if you've been wondering where the name Syokimau comes from, that's where it comes from. Those are my random thoughts.